I knew they were drinking antifreeze, and I was so mad at them, I didn't want to take them in.
Easter Sunday 2012. A seemingly devoted wife returns from church to find her husband dead in their Springfield, Missouri home. 5 months later, their 26-year-old son dies under nearly identical circumstances. And just months after that, their 24-year-old daughter collapses into a coma, her organs shutting down one by one. 3 family members, 3 medical emergencies, all within 1 year, and all of them blamed natural causes, until an anonymous phone call changed everything. Springfield, Missouri, known as the Queen City of the Ozarks, is home to about 170,000 people. It's ranked among the top places to live in the United States, with growing industries, beautiful natural landscapes, and a tight-knit community feel. But beneath that wholesome exterior, darkness was brewing inside one seemingly ordinary family. The Staudte family was made up of Mark and Diane, high school sweethearts who married on December 28, 1985. Though there was a 10-year age gap between them, they built a life together in Springfield, eventually growing their family to 6. Their first child, Shawn, was born in July 1986, just 7 months after their wedding. 3 daughters followed, Sarah, Rachel, and Brianna. Diane worked as a clinical supervisor for United Healthcare, bringing in the steady income that kept the family afloat. In her spare time, she played the organ at Redeemer Lutheran Church, a pillar of the community, at least on the surface. Mark, on the other hand, was more of a free spirit. He played guitar and harmonica in a local rock and roll country band called Messing with Destiny. They performed at bars and venues around Springfield and Branson, building a small but loyal following. On the side, Mark worked odd jobs, bartending here and there, but music was his passion. The family lived in a small 3-bedroom house on West Olive Street. 6 people, 3 bedrooms. It was tight, cramped, and tensions often ran high. Diane was described by neighbors and acquaintances as quiet, reserved, maybe even a bit standoffish. Mark, by contrast, was gregarious and well-liked, beloved by his bandmates and friends in the local music scene. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming. Diane had a clear favorite among her children, Rachel, the second youngest daughter. She posted pictures of Rachel constantly, praised her academic achievements, and openly favored her over the others. Rachel made the dean's list time and again and shared her mother's love of religious music. Shawn, the oldest son, had autism. He struggled with social interactions and was often described by Diane as difficult and intrusive. Brianna, the youngest daughter, had learning disabilities that required extra attention. And Sarah, the eldest daughter, had just graduated from Missouri State University, but was struggling to find a job and drowning in student loan debt. To the outside world, they looked like any other family navigating life's challenges. But inside that house, resentment was building, and it was about to boil over.
How would you explain, what would be your explanation if there's something in their samples that comes back as being, as if there is some kind of chemical or something that shouldn't be there of that nature?
I really don't know.
In early April 2012, Mark Staudte's bandmates noticed something was off. During rehearsals for upcoming gigs, Mark seemed weak, sluggish, and out of sorts. His skin had taken on a yellowish tinge. He looked wrong. He felt wrong. On Friday, April 6th, Mark performed with his band despite feeling ill. By the next day, he could barely get out of bed. He was nauseous, weak, and barely responsive. Diane later told investigators that throughout the weekend, she checked on him periodically, but each time he could only grunt or didn't respond at all. On Easter Sunday, April 8, 2012, the day after Mark's 61st birthday, Diane returned from church to find him dead. When police arrived, Diane explained that Mark had been feeling sick for days. She said he'd had 3 seizures that day, the last one just 45 minutes before she found him. When officers asked why she hadn't called 911 during the seizures, Diane said Mark had told her he didn't want to go to the hospital. There was a ring of blood around Mark's mouth, an odd detail, but no signs of trauma or injury. No drugs or alcohol were found in his system. The medical examiner ruled the death as natural causes, likely related to Mark's poor health. He didn't exercise, ate poorly, and had a history of health issues. No autopsy was performed. As you can imagine, Mark's bandmates were devastated. They played at his memorial service, honoring the man they'd called a friend and a brother. And as hard as it was, life went on. Diane received a $20,000 life insurance payout, not a fortune, but enough to make a change. 2 months after Mark's death, Diane purchased a larger home in a nicer neighborhood, just a 10-minute drive from their old place. It seemed like a fresh start for the grieving family. But that fresh start wouldn't last long. On September 2nd, 2012, less than 6 months after Mark's death, another 911 call came from the Staudte home. This time, it was 26-year-old Shawn who wasn't breathing. Once again, Diane had returned from church to find a family member dead. She told investigators she had spoken to Shawn the night before. He'd been feeling sick, nauseous, achy, suffering from diarrhea. Symptoms he'd been experiencing for weeks, she said. She checked on him a couple of times throughout the night before heading off to play the organ at church that morning. When paramedics arrived, they found Shawn's body in his bedroom. Just like his father, there were no signs of trauma or injury. And just like his father, there was a ring of blood around his mouth. The medical examiner once again ruled the death as natural causes, attributing it to prior medical issues related to Shawn's autism and overall health. Shawn's body was cremated just a few days later. For most people, losing a father and a son within 6 months would be devastating. But those who knew Diane noticed something strange. She didn't seem grief-stricken. She didn't break down. If anything, she seemed relieved. Neighbors later told investigators that Diane had become more isolated after Shawn's death, pulling away from social events, keeping the family more insulated. But she wasn't mourning. She was moving on. It seemed unnatural that a father and son would both die of natural causes within such a short time frame. The similarities were striking. The sudden onset of illness, the nausea, the weakness, the ring of blood around the mouth, but no one suspected foul play. Not yet. In June 2013, just over a year after Mark's death and 9 months after Shawn's, Sarah Staudte was admitted to the hospital in critical condition. Her kidneys had shut down, her pancreas was failing, she was bleeding in the brain. Doctors had no idea what was wrong with her. Sarah's condition was deteriorating rapidly, and it didn't look like she would survive. But while Sarah lay dying in the ICU, something extraordinary happened. An anonymous caller contacted the Springfield Police Department. The caller said that Diane Staudte was responsible for possibly 2, maybe even 3, homicides. The caller mentioned Mark and Shawn by name, and presumably Sarah was going to be the third. Detectives immediately went to the hospital to speak with Sarah's doctors and nurses. What they learned was alarming. The medical staff confirmed that Sarah was in a potentially fatal condition, but they couldn't figure out what was causing it. Every test they ran came back negative. One of the doctors told investigators he had suspicions that this wasn't a natural illness. When all tests come back negative and the patient is still dying, there's really only one conclusion: poison. The deaths of Mark and Shawn were immediately re-examined. Investigators pulled the medical examiner's reports and noticed the similarities. Both had died with the exact same symptoms. Both had a ring of blood around their mouths, and now Sarah was exhibiting those same symptoms. Tissue samples that had been preserved from Mark and Shawn's bodies were sent for advanced testing, and when those results came back, They revealed traces of ethylene glycol, the toxic compound found in antifreeze. This wasn't coincidence, this was murder. It would later be revealed that the anonymous caller was Diane's own pastor from Redeemer Lutheran Church. He had noticed her strange behavior after the deaths, her lack of emotion, her odd comments, and something didn't sit right with him. That phone call saved Sarah's life. On June 18, 2013, Sarah's condition began to stabilize. She was moved out of the ICU, and that's when detectives decided it was time to bring Diane in for questioning.
I appreciate you being willing to come down and speak with us. You're very helpful on your part.
I'll try to be.
All right.
Don't know what I can tell you.
Well, okay. Well, that's what we're gonna try and get figured out. Obviously, like I told you at the house, we got the call about Sarah and her condition. But you say she's doing better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
At first, the detective's questions seemed routine. He asked Diane to walk through the timeline of Sarah's illness, when it started, what symptoms she had, when they took her to the hospital.
She started feeling sick Saturday, just a mild headache.
This past Saturday?
Well, it's been a whole week.
Oh, so, okay. How did all that come about?
She started, Saturday she complained of a little headache,
Mm-hmm.
and her stomach was upset, and she threw up a couple of times. And that was it. And then her normal routine is she stays up all night and sleeps during the day. So I didn't think any about it until Sunday afternoon, and then I couldn't get her to wake up. She didn't respond to me, so we took her to the emergency room.
Okay.
But what stood out to investigators wasn't what Diane said. It was what she didn't say. She showed no real concern for her daughter, no fear, no panic. Instead, she spoke about Sarah's illness like it was an inconvenience.
So on Saturday then, you said she was having some headaches and throwing up.
Uh-huh. But it wasn't that bad.
Not
I
that.
mean, I've seen the flu bug worse.
Okay.
So I didn't think that much about it.
About what time was that on Saturday?
Oh, that was in the afternoon.
Okay. And then you remember about what time it was that she went to bed?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I really don't know, because I go to bed at 10
Okay.
at night, and she's usually still up.
Okay. And then you woke up Sunday morning.
And she was asleep.
Okay. Then what happened?
Me and the other girls went to church, and we left her sleeping.
Okay.
And then I came home, and she was still sleeping. And then maybe a couple hours later, I went to check on her, and we just couldn't get her to respond or answer or anything.
The detective then began to probe deeper. He asked about Sarah's mental health, whether she might have tried to harm herself. Diane latched onto this narrative immediately.
Okay.
My first thing is, did she get into something? Did she try to overdose or something? And then when I got home from the ER, I checked her medicine, and she had plenty of pills left. So I don't think she OD'd her medicine, but I have no clue.
Okay.
Diane even suggested that Sarah might have gotten into household cleaners. And when the detective asked her to be more specific, her answer was chilling.
What kind of cleaners do you think it could have been that she would have?
What do I have? I can't see her taking soap. Yuck. The general, everyday cleaner. I have some of that.
What would that be?
What's the name of it? Lysol?
Okay.
I know I have that, but I don't.
Could you even hurt yourself from soap or Lysol? Do you know? I'm not.
I have no clue.
No clue. Okay.
I don't even think about.
Right. I've just never heard of anything like that, so I
I haven't either. It's like, but I guess, I don't know. I guess if you took enough, something would do something,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never, I don't know.
Okay.
The detective knew exactly what had happened. The toxicology results had come back. They had found ethylene glycol, antifreeze, in the tissue samples from both Mark and Shawn, and they knew Sarah had been poisoned with the same substance, but they needed a confession. So the detective began to lay out hypothetical scenarios, giving Diane the chance to explain the evidence before confronting her directly.
Well, let me ask you this, because from talking with the hospital, it sounds like they're doing a bunch of tests, and they're even sending some tests off to labs elsewhere. They mentioned the Mayo Clinic and
Oh, wow.
and possibly other places, just the nature of this. Do you think there's going to be anything suspicious that they find in all these tests that they're going to be doing?
I have no clue.
If it would come back that there was something in there like that, how would you explain that?
I don't know. Depends. I don't know. Depends on what, if something did show up, I'd have to figure out what it is. And then try and figure out where did it come from. Because I don't know.
The detective pressed further. He asked about the life insurance policies. He asked about Diane's marriage to Mark, whether it was happy, whether there were problems, and Diane's answers began to reveal her true feelings.
What was Mark's life insurance policy like?
He only had $20,000. That was it.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it suspicion. I was not surprised because he would binge drink and.
What was your guys' marriage like?
How can I say this? We were still married, but it was not what you call a good marriage.
Mm-hmm. Have there been any infidelities on either side?
He had.
Yeah. So I'm guessing then, just briefly, thought he wasn't the best husband?
Probably not.
Okay.
Not to society, no.
What do you mean by that, not to society?
Well, he was running around and he would drink and smoke pot and.
So he wasn't a very good guy, is what you're saying?
Yeah. I know, I've had friends who told me I should kick him out, but I couldn't find myself kicking him out.
Why not?
I was afraid he'd kill himself.
Why is that, though? Why would he kill himself?
Oh, he was bipolar too.
She described Mark as someone who contributed nothing. She described Shawn as intrusive, annoying, someone who interfered with her work. And when the detective asked about Sarah, Diane's frustration boiled over.
Sarah's a difficult child to deal with.
I understand.
And I've been kind of putting pressure on her to, you need to get out and get a job. Your college bills are coming due. I don't want to pay for them. After all, you get tired of doing everything for your kids, and it's like you need to step up and do it.
The detective could see Diane was close to breaking, so he shifted tactics. He began to sympathize with her, to validate her frustrations, to make her feel understood.
Diane, here's the deal. I'm here to try to help you out with all this, because I know.
Because I need all the help I can get.
I understand. I understand. I really do. And I know that this is, because you're a good person, I know that this is tearing you up, that this is bothering you. I truly understand that. But I'm here to help you out, because I know that you don't want, because of you being a good person, you don't want everybody out here, when this all comes out, you don't want them to think of you as a bad, evil type person. Because I know that that's not how you are.
And that's when the first crack appeared. The detective continued to press gently, offering Diane a way out, a chance to explain herself, to show remorse, to ask for forgiveness. He told her that people would understand if she had just reached her breaking point.
I think it's just pushed to the brink. Can't take it anymore. You know, you're doing all this stuff for everybody. You're working all the time. You're paying the bills. You're doing this. You're doing that. You can't get help. No jobs. You got all this other stuff. All these other burdens coming upon you, where all of us get to a point where we just say, you know, enough is enough.
And then, finally, Diane spoke.
There's a lot of arguments. And to put it really short and sweet, I knew they were drinking antifreeze. And I was so mad at them, I didn't want to take them in.
But the detective wasn't satisfied. He knew Diane wasn't telling the whole truth. She was still trying to make it sound like they had poisoned themselves, like she had only failed to help them.
How'd you know they were drinking antifreeze, Diane?
They told me.
Diane, you knew that they were drinking antifreeze.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that. They didn't. We both know that.
And I didn't know what else to do. I really didn't.
I understand.
Diane explained that she had researched antifreeze poisoning on the internet. She knew it was odorless and slightly sweet, easy to hide in a drink. Over a 3-day period, she put it in Mark's Gatorade. A few months later, she did the same thing to Shawn, putting it in his Coke, and then she poisoned Sarah the same way. The detective asked her to clarify. She said she gave them antifreeze once a day, just a couple of tablespoons at a time. When it didn't work fast enough, she gave them more. Antifreeze contains ethylene glycol, which is metabolized by the body into toxic compounds. Within hours, the victim would feel drunk, tired, and nauseous. Within 12 hours, crystals would form in the kidneys. The poison would attack the organs, kidneys, lungs, brain, heart, rapid breathing, convulsions, coma, and finally, death. But Diane hadn't acted alone. When investigators searched the Staudte home, they found a diary in Rachel's bedroom, and what they read inside was chilling. In the diary, Rachel had written, "It's sad when I realize how my father will pass on in the next 2 months. Shawn, my brother, will move on shortly after. It will be tough getting used to the changes, but everything will work out." The murders had been planned for over a year. Rachel knew what her mother was going to do, and she helped. Rachel was brought in for questioning the next day, and she too confessed. She admitted that she and her mother had researched different methods, pills, strangulation, even witchcraft. But they settled on antifreeze because it was easy, untraceable, and didn't require violence. Rachel explained how they would slip the antifreeze into drinks while Sarah was distracted on her computer. It wouldn't take much, just a quick pour when she wasn't looking. When asked why they finally took Sarah to the hospital when she was near death, Rachel's answer revealed just how cold and calculated she really was. She said she didn't want another body dying in the house because houses become nasty after someone dies in them. She said she kept having nightmares after Shawn died in his room. She said she didn't think they would get caught. She wanted it to be just her and her mother because, as she put it, her mother understood her and didn't annoy her. When Diane was arrested, investigators found a poem in her handbag. It read, "Once upon a time there were 6, now there are 3. Only the quiet ones will be left. My mom, my little sister, and me." Both Diane and Rachel were charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of first-degree assault, and 1 count of armed criminal action. Sarah survived, but barely. She suffered severe neurological damage from the poisoning. She had to relearn how to walk and talk. Her kidneys were permanently damaged, and she would carry the physical and emotional scars of what her mother and sister did to her for the rest of her life. In 2016, Diane took an offered plea. She didn't acknowledge any wrongdoing, only that there was enough evidence to convict her. This allowed her to avoid the death penalty. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rachel, in a deal with prosecutors, agreed to testify against her mother. She pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 42 years. At sentencing, Sarah faced the sister who had tried to murder her. Through tears, she read a victim impact statement. She said she forgave her sister and her mother for what they did to her. She said that not only did they take away her father and brother, but they took away her livelihood and independence. But as a Christian, she believed forgiveness was the only way to go. The fact that Diane could do this to her own husband of nearly 3 decades and to her own 2 children is almost incomprehensible. She murdered them not for money, not for revenge, not even out of rage. She murdered them because in her mind they were useless. Sadly, cases where a mother kills her own children without showing mercy are not unique to the Staudte family. A similar tragedy happened in another case, the Worley family massacre, where the